care in Baltics. If everybody is fine with recording it, because we'll share it afterwards, if somebody is not, just tell now, because we'll record it. And then we'll share with everybody the results of this research and also maybe this video. Okay, so first of all, we'll say a couple of words about Safe Consortium and Senior Group, so who has performed this research. Then a couple of figures about Baltic States in general, why Baltic States, what we're thinking about them, what we do here. Then about our research, we'll present the results, also call them intermediate results because it's not possible to say that they're final. And we'll make a couple of conclusions that also definitely have the status of intermediate. So what does it mean, Safe Consortium? Safe Consortium, it's a number of European actors of senior care that has been created the last summer from several EU countries with the idea to identify some solutions for keeping safe the residents of nursing homes and of other types of senior care facilities. And the Senior Group is one of the members simply of this Safe Consortium. So since that time, Safe Consortium has performed a couple of researches already, and they were presented. The first research was about European market. And as I told you, the objective of Consortium was to support private, public living senior care facilities, to search some opportunities how to save their lives and to identify solutions how to do it. Based on the first result of the Consortium research, we grouped all the European countries into 4 different groups. Sorry, something strange happens with my, hold on. Excuse me, I mean that something strange happens with my presentation tool. Wow. Excuse me, I will change maybe my network because maybe it's because of the internet. 15 seconds, please. 6 professional operators or not operators but academics, and with idea in case of these and new possible waves of pandemics, how to keep the residents of senior care facilities safe. With these 2 objectives, and as I told you, based on the first research of Consortium, we divided all the 28 European countries into 4 groups, and these 4 groups, they reacted by different ways to the challenges of pandemics. All the Europe has been divided in, first of all, in 2 parts: Eastern Europe or Old Europe, or New Europe and Old Europe. And then we identified that there were several patterns that defined how these countries, we're talking about long-term care demands, they reacted for challenges of pandemics. So mainly the main difference was in density of population at that time. That was already 2 years ago, but other interesting criteria that we've taken into account, that were 25 different parameters that we've taken into account just to divide all these countries in 4 groups, from quantity of people older than 80, population, total quantity of COVID deaths. So mainly the division was quite clear at that time. And now, that time we were trying to understand how countries behave, what were the patterns. The main objectives of this research, with a smaller scope but with higher level of detailization, was what was the state of Baltics senior care before COVID, and how hard has COVID pandemic hit the long-term care domain in Baltics. When I'm talking about Baltics, we're talking about Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. So first of all, as I told you that all the 28 European countries were divided into 4 different groups, as we call them. It was small fighters, it were old money, it were traditional fighters, and Baltic countries were the members of the group that we called small fighters. That time, the percent of loss, so it's the main parameter that we were trying to measure, the quantity of deaths in long-term care institutions per quantity of beds in long-term care system. Mainly, you see the results of the first wave of pandemics, and we see that that time the countries of Baltics, they behaved themselves quite well, much better than, for instance, big countries that time, and we'll see what has been changed since that period. And right now we'll try to analyze, and mainly to analyze not only influence of pandemics, but also the changes that happened and that are happening regularly with the demand of senior care in Baltics, because and it's quite serious difference between New Europe and Western Europe, that in Western Europe currently the demand of institutional senior care is quite stable already. Okay, I think that everybody knows about this recent scandal with Orpera and with Korean, the book that has appeared yesterday. I have just downloaded it and we'll read it for sure, but I personally think that it's time to buy the shares of Orpera, because the value has been dropped 2 times since the day before yesterday, continue to drop down. I would say that except of these challenges, the system of old Europe is much more stable than the institutional care of new European countries, and Baltics represent the part of these new European countries. There are some absolute parameters that I just shown. All these results, they are from the first report of the research of Safe Consortium, and everybody can simply download it from the site of Safe Consortium or from our page in LinkedIn. A couple of words about Senior Group, one of the founders of Safe Consortium. We are a French company that is active in Baltics. Currently, we have 7 objects and grouped in 3 locations and 7 facilities under construction, 6 in Latvia and 1 in Lithuania. We were quite active in development of our new concept, so-called senior quartier, and that's what we are doing. So that's our pipeline. That's all. Stop about us. Let's talk now about Baltic States. So Baltic States, they are the most developed countries if we are talking about some parameters per capita, not definitely about like GDP of country, because if we're talking about GDP of country, definitely it's Poland. Poland takes almost half of all the GDP of these, as we call it, new European countries. Just to remind that new European countries, there are 10 countries: Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovenia, Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria. And there are approximately 110 million population in these 10 countries. And Baltics with Czech Republic, with Hungary, with Slovenia are the most developed part of these new countries. And also it's quite aged part. So the percentage of population over 80 years in Baltic countries is higher than in other countries that we call these small fighters. And the density of population is really small compared to other countries. These 3 small countries have quite low density of population compared to other European countries and compared even to other green small fighters countries. We would say that these countries, they spend quite serious money for long-term care as percent of their GDP. If you compare them, for instance, even to Poland, to Bulgaria, it's quite high. It's still much lower than, as we call it, well-offered big countries or small rich countries. But it's slightly higher than either other small fighters. So just to say that why we're here. Pensions are still quite low. So I would say that in Estonia this year it's much higher already. We'll see right now the map, but the pensions, in spite of the fact that GDP is quite high, they are not reasonable at all. So that's the reality. The size of LTC institutions, that's quite interesting, are since, I would say that 20 years ago, then when we made we started to make these regular researches 10 years ago, average size of institution in Latvia was 150 beds. So it was Soviet-style mastodons that are collected from, and still in Riga there are 3, for instance, facilities with 300 beds. So only in Russia, I think there are bigger. But since that time, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, over the last 10 years have constructed a lot of small residences. So the average size has been diminished dramatically and significantly. So we would say that in these countries, still the percentage of long-term care beds per total quantity of citizens over 80 is lower than 13%, and that's average for this group of the countries for the green small fighters. And we will see that even this distribution is uneven. So these are these 3 countries. Just to remind you the geographical position. So they are bordered by Russia, by Poland, by Belarus. And currently there are approximately 30,000 long-term care beds in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. It's quite strange figure in terms that, for instance, the same figure 10 years ago was almost 10,000 beds bigger. And it's because of the fact that still in these 3 countries, the system of counting the beds, like we can call them long-term care or senior beds, is still divided between healthcare ministry and social care ministry. And it's especially about, for instance, Lithuanian institutions. A lot of recently built Lithuanian institutions, they're registered like rehabilitation centers, not like social care facilities. And so these data, when it's consolidated, for instance, by OECD, it changes from year to year because either they take into account the data that is supplied by healthcare ministry or they don't take. So based on it, it's very difficult to understand how really, what's the real quantity of long-term care beds in Lithuania, for instance. In Estonia, everything is fine. I mean, the statistics is really good, and it matches to between statistics of different ministries. So when we're talking about retirement and pensions, we can say that in average, the ratio between the price per bed per 1 month in France, for instance, and in Baltic countries is almost the same, from 2 to 3 times bigger. So it's impossible just to pay only by pension for staying in the facility. We are talking about this target group. So it's, for instance, pyramid of age in Latvia. So if we say that average age of moving to retirement facility is 81 years old, we see that this is target group. And all the domain of institutional senior care works for a sort of baby boomers a la Baltic. So if in all the world baby boomers are those who were born after the Second World War, you see that unfortunately in maybe it's in all the Eastern Europe, but in Baltics for sure, that since the second part of the World War, the natality has been dropped significantly. And we are talking mainly about baby boomers who are now entering this age. So if we see, for instance, if we look at their animation, and it's quite funny to see that only in 2016, the first time the situation when the quantity of Latvians, because it's a video about Latvian age pyramid, those who are over than 81 has crossed the barrier of 80 years. So in spite of the fact of permanent aging of these three countries, only 3 years ago, actually the situation of avalanching increase of quantity of those who are over than 81 has been launched, and it will continue for several years, and then it will be stopped once more. Now we'll talk about our research. So institutional senior-cane Baltics. What we were trying to understand, definitely we were trying to understand the demand, we were trying to understand the supply and the influence of state and how everything has been influenced in its own turn by COVID. So to understand the demand, we had to understand the need, current and planned, and the purchase power. And the supply, we have to see that what current players there are, what are substitutors like home care, what are complementers like medical service. Need, we try to understand by measuring the quantity of those who are over 80 today and who will enter to this age the next several years. And about their purchase power, we were trying to get the average pension structure, the average structure of income of a household, and the voucher system of municipality. So how much municipality or state pays, because they are mainly free sources of payment for one bed. So what we have, we performed the first and already presented the first results of the research already half a year ago, that we analyzed totally approximately 450 residences in 3 countries. So when I'm talking that we analyzed them, it means that we performed a real feeling of data about it. So every residence has received a sort of record in this form, something like this, that how many beds, the lowest, the highest price, quantity of institution, what is the real estate type, who is owner. So we have 450 records like this, and that helped us to make some interesting maps that I will share with you right now. So I would say that currently the majority of HK institutions in Baltic states, they are still municipal. So that's not already, for instance, for Estonia, but in average 42% they are municipal. The second, they are private, and that's something that gives us a hope about everything. And then it's non-profit, and we separate religious from non-profit, because mainly non-profit institutions, they belong to monsters like Red Cross, like Samaritan Association, like Maltese Cross, and very few residences, they belong to state directly. That's there are even residents with special needs, like for blind people or something like this, or still existing residences that traditionally belongs directly to ministries, like for instance the situation with one residence in Latvia. Now let's see the result of what we can present. So for drawing out these maps, we used specially developed engine, so-called Mapsly. So I will show you what is it. So this Mapsly, it's engine that is connected directly to our CRM. As I told you, here is CRM. We see here, for instance, all the facilities like these, facilities in Baltics, in different municipalities. We can put a canvas view, so to see about every residence the most essential information, and then it's connected directly to this. So you see that here are the residences that have all the information that we succeeded to collect about them. So about place, about ownership, and then they are connected to Mapsly. And here you see that, for instance, the map of COVID deaths in residences in municipality for the last half year, according to a report that has been reported to Ministry of Social Affairs in Latvia. Or we can see something else, like what I've just shown to you, quantity of beds in all institutions in municipality. So like this, we can see that I will show you right now better. And also we can see all the residences themselves. So for instance, right now I see all the municipal residences. So we can go to this municipal residence, we can open it in CRM, and we can see the information about prices, about something what we need, and about pricing, about how this resident is positioned, like senior apartments, like family style resident, what real estate type, if it's adapted, can it supply Alzheimer's service, if it's rural, and COVID. So we see that, for instance, the last half a year, there were 2 new cases of COVID, of contamination of employees in these residences. Nobody has died of COVID since the last 6 years. That 100, according to data, are vaccinated, and 100 of residents are vaccinated. And for the start of every month, since 1st of July, they were never reported somebody who were ill. So these new cases were evidently reported between the start of the month. So, and the same information afterwards is reflected on this map. That's how it works. Okay, let's come back for our presentation. So here is, we see the average pension, and it's quite funny. We see that Estonia, and there are 3 countries. You see that Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And we see that Estonia has much higher pensions in half of all the municipalities than Latvia and Lithuania. That's just quite interesting criteria to show purchase power in Estonia for our type of services. So then we calculated the need. As we told that average need is approximately 13%. I've shown you in the beginning of our report. Here we take 15%, and we see that according to this map, because of the low density of population in Estonia, the need is much higher in Lithuania than in Estonia. So the purchase power is higher than Estonia, and the need is higher than in Lithuania. So if we match these 2 maps, we'll see that what is supply and need. So if we diminish, so if we calculate in every municipality the quantity of existing beds, and we'll diminish it for the quantity of the potential needed places, like 15% of population over than 80 years, we'll see that need in Lithuania is much higher than in Estonia. So we see that in Estonia, if we take the same percent for need, so this 15%, seems that in majority of municipalities, the need is already satisfied. But then we'll try to check if it's true or not. And we'll draw out the places, available places in municipalities. So if there is red, it means that in any residence of municipality do now exist any empty place. Okay, so this is the data for September, but never mind. In spite of the fact that, as we just seen in Estonia there, and we will see it in several minutes, since the last 20 years, they were constructed maybe 3 times more residences than in Lithuania. So the need, if we take the same percentage of those who are over than 80, is much higher. The situation with the empty beds is not better than in Lithuania. So the only conclusion that we can make that this percentage, 15%, is not already correct for Estonia. So the need in Estonia, or the need plus purchase power, so the demand is much higher compared to Lithuania. And these red municipalities, they're exactly the municipalities where it's the best time, the best opportunity to construct the new residences. So if then we put to the map the quantity of beds for every municipality, definitely we'll see that 3 municipalities, Tallinn, Riga, and Vilnius, they have the most of all the beds. So in Tallinn, there are 1,000 beds, in Vilnius 1,500, in Riga there are 1,600 beds. Then in Lithuania, on the second place, there is Kaunas region, and if we analyze more, that's in Estonia, it's Saaremaa, then it would be Pärnu and other municipalities. But once more, the biggest quantity of beds are in their capitals of these 3 countries. That's logical, and I would say that if you watch the previous supply need, in spite of the fact the need in capitals are still higher than in other parts of the country. And this map is quite interesting. So if we put on the same scale, on the same map, the quantity of newly constructed residences, so yellow, it's everything before 1991 or no data. It's quite funny that there are some residences that were constructed in Baltics as residences, not like Kaserne or warehouse and then converted, but is acting like nursing homes since the last decade of 19th century, so more than 150 years. That's the reality. But we will see that Estonia is definitely champion. So since if you see that these blue and violet, so since 2001, a lot of new residences have been constructed in Estonia, compared, for instance, to Latvia, that still either keeps in secret the newly residences, so either no data, but I would say that mainly it's not the case, mainly the fact that Latvia has been constructed a lot of residences from 91 to 2000. So maybe it were projects that were started in Soviet times and simply they were finished. But you see that Estonia and Lithuania, they constructed quite a lot of residences. And if you see that, we will see right now it's in table view, but in 2000, in the first decade of 21st century, Estonia has constructed more than somebody else, and then Estonia kept this tempo of developing of residences. And as I will conclude later, that even COVID times did not stop or did not even slow down the process of construction of new residences in Estonia. Right now, let's see the maximal prices. You see that in Estonia, the prices are on the same level like in Lithuania and much higher than in average in Latvia. So Latvia is far beyond in terms of prices, in terms of newly constructed residences than Estonia and Lithuania. And anyway, we see that definitely in Vilnius, Tallinn, Riga, the prices are much higher than in Estonia. All these seacoast close to Tallinn has quite high prices. We're talking about Viimsi and Tallinn and something else. So here is the maximum price per day in euros in municipality of all these 3 countries. So it's just to show the comparison that need is greater than supply and municipalities with 0 places available. It's very difficult to see any correlation. So mainly we can conclude that either the percentage of need in Estonia is much lower than in, so here is quite even, and here definitely Estonia is much more developed. So we can say that the need or demand in Estonia is much higher than in other parts of the Baltics. So that's the main outcome of this map, as we can do it. And here is the map of development since 2000. And the map of development, we just taken one of the type of residences just to show it. It's the private residences. So if there is at least one private residence in municipality, the municipality is colored by yellow. If in municipality there are no any private residence, the municipality is colored by green. So once more, let's see that 2000, the situation is quite same. Very few private residences in all the Baltic states. So for instance, this region of Latvia, Latgalia, no any private residences. And the center of Estonia, the same. And the north of Lithuania. So some private residents around Kaunas, close to Vilnius, and definitely close to Klaipėda. And then in 2011, we see that Estonia starts to develop private residences, and that's how it works. And also Lithuania, and not a lot has been changed in Latvia. So Latgalia is steam green without any private residences. And then 2022, so for today, we see that Estonia has developed a lot of private residences since 2011. Lithuania has been trying to catch up with. There is a sort of cluster close to Kaunas now. And still Latgalia does not have, or maybe has, but does not report the private residences. So we can make some conclusions about it, but this series of maps is quite illustrative, how different countries manage differently the politics and development of HK institutions. I would say a couple of words, what according to my opinion is the main difference. So in Estonia, all the residences and all the institutional care is really financed mainly by families, by relatives, and by aged persons. So the contribution of state is quite low, and either municipality contributes not more than 20% usually of placing of payment of aged care person. But in Latvia and in Lithuania, there is different situation. So still their support of aged person is considered by population like obligation of a state of municipality. That's the case. And as we see that it slows down the development of at least private institutions, but we will see that private institution is the driver or development of it. So quantity of newly built residences, if we see in general, they were constructed a lot since 90s, but majority were constructed, as we see that in Estonia, blue one, and if we see that in Estonia, they were mainly private. Municipalities, they were continued to construct, and even from 2021 to 2022, so during COVID times, we see that there were some residences once more mainly constructed in Estonia, but also in Latvia were opened, and in Lithuania. So the main outcome is that COVID has not dramatically influenced the development of this domain, of this market or area in Baltic countries. So now let's analyze the situation of vaccination and of COVID deaths and of hospitalizations in all the institutions in Latvia. Unfortunately, we don't have right now the verified access for information in Estonia and Lithuania. So we'll take like main outcome Latvian data that actually corresponds to our main conclusions. So we see that officially the level of vaccination over the last wave has been increased since 70% till almost 97%. That's nice. That's fine. And we see that this peak, it was November, and it was the quantity of COVID officially detected by PCR tests, the quantity of employees and of residents in all the institutions in Latvia for the first day of the month. And we see that in July there were 0 employees and 8 residents only, and were 47 and 68. Once more, these data are official of ministry. We still cannot say that it's completely correct, but that's something that we are obliged now to use because that's the only data that exists. Also, if we are talking about what's the difference? So these are new. It was copied chart, and sorry, the title is not correct, but here are the new cases of contamination. So you see that in October, for instance, we had the maximum of cases of contamination. And so for the 1st of November, we had the maximum of contaminated persons. Then the quantity of contaminated employees and residents started to drop down. And we see that in December, the quantity of contaminated persons were lower. Unfortunately, we see that in January, once more, we see the peak of contamination. So maybe in February, we'll see once more the jump, the rise of the quantity of contaminated of ill persons. But this is already Omicron. So as we'll see on the next slide, we will not have these dramatic consequences as hospitalizations. So here is hospitalizations because of COVID, the quantity of hospitalizations, and those persons who have died because of COVID. So it's the same. It's in all the Latvia, in all the residences. So we see that the maximum was in November. Here in January and December, we don't have a lot. That's fine. So that's current situation in COVID. But here is, for instance, the map of municipalities of Latvia where they were detected and registered the deaths in institutions because of COVID, or not because of, with positively detected COVID. I would not, unfortunately, trust for this map for 100%, because, for instance, in Riga, you see that there are no any officially registered death in COVID, even if I know for sure that they were. So maybe it's exactly the same round of counting, that if person has died in hospital where it has been moved from institution, it's not counted like COVID death. But we see that there are sort of clusters anyway, so that it means that this COVID has been transmitted by communication between different closely placed municipalities. Okay, so what rests to make some conclusions. This just to show that how look like today the analyzed facilities. And this famous parameter right now can be assessed on the level 0.6. So just to remind that in the beginning, on the first wave, this parameter for Baltics was 0.4. And for instance, for Europe, it was 1.6. So we can say that right now there a quantity of those who have lost officially their lives because of COVID while staying in long-term care institutions is less than 1%. And I would say that it's quite the same right now, like in France, where during the first wave, it was much higher, but now because of very high level of vaccination, it has been dropped down. So it's higher than on the first wave, but it's still lower than in other parts of the Europe, at least according to official statistics that we have access to. So that's all. We should say that as these, we have a lot of data, and definitely only few reports has been presented. We can actually, if somebody is interested, supply you with other reports. So framework of analysis that has been developed already 1 year ago has shown to be quite normal, to be used even now. And because of the fact that we've seen in this domain, we can conclude that COVID pandemics hasn't influenced seriously the institutional aged care domain of Baltic states. I would say that even the waiting lists were not affected so dramatically, for instance, as in France. In France, we have, right now, it's very difficult to find still any institution where there are no simply empty places. And that's not the case for Baltics, at least for the start of this autumn. So we have a lot of annexes here, some more detailed charts, but I don't think that we should spend time for it. So it was planned for 45 minutes and 15 minutes for questions if any question exists. So if somebody wants to put any additional questions, I'm ready to answer or to write it down to be answered on the one of the next hour reports. So thank you for joining, and I'm waiting for your reaction, for your questions. Okay, so Artyom, we don't have any questions in chat or something like this?
Yes, I have. Thank you for such deep analysis. Actually, I would like to ask, did you count how immigration level affects the need of the beds? For example, there is a much smaller immigration rate in Estonia, but for example, in Lithuania, there is higher. Does immigration affect how many beds are needed? Because people are going out and they can't take care about the parents.
We've done it not in frames of this research. I would say that yes, for Lithuania and for Latvia, there is a separate segment that we count all the time, those who live abroad and who should take care of their relatives. I would say that because of COVID, more than several 100,000 of citizens of Baltic countries have come back from England, at least, to Baltics. So right now, we don't even, I'm talking about senior group that manages these facilities. Even before the start of COVID pandemics, we had special programs of working with these families. Right now, we don't have them. So it means that this segment still exists, but after the start of pandemics, it has become much smaller. That's how I can conclude. Yeah, Helena?
Thank you very much. You know, I really enjoyed it. It's a very in-depth study that you made, and that gives some good point of comparison. So thank you very much. I wanted to ask you a question about the taux de remplissage, you know, of the capacity raise of the institutions in Baltics. So what is the average rate?
As I told you, if we simply look at the map where there are no any empty place at all, yeah. Half of all the municipalities, they simply don't have any empty place. Mm-hmm. So you see that all these red municipalities, there are no empty places at all in these municipalities, in any of their facilities. So we can assess this occupancy rate on the level, I would say 90, maybe even higher. So any new constructed residence is filled approximately with the 10-15 net increase of quantity of residents per month. So for instance, in our business plan and what we currently succeed to achieve, that we reach the 95 level of occupancy in several months since opening of every residence. And it's not because we are the best, even we are, but it's simply because of the situation that no big losses because of COVID, very low level of quantity of beds per 1,000 over 80. So I think that average we can 90% of occupancy rate in Baltics, something like this.
Well, fascinating, fantastic. That's excellent.
Why you are considering from point of view of businesswomen? No, for aged persons it's not good, and for families it's not good. They're not able. Very long waiting lists. Mainly the residences where there are empty places, available beds. They're not on very high level, and on high level institutions there are very few empty places. So a lot of job to be done.
That's excellent. This is reassuring. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions?
Answer.
Artyom?
I have one question also.
Okay.
Nikolai, if you can see the age pyramid,
yeah,
which showing the residents, quantity of residents over 80 years, there is a significant drop in 2026, I suppose. So for 5 or 6 years. And what is the plan? How can we cover this significant drop?
That's the drop in need, not in demand, because parallelly, as we see in Estonia, we have quite serious increase of this percentage. So mainly it has happened already in France, in Germany. So these waves, okay, where is it? Oh, for a second. This wave is would be covered mainly by the fact that percentage of those who would use this service would be increased. So right now, as I told you, it's 13 beds per 1,000 residents over 80 years. And average OECD, it's 42 beds, so 3 times more. So just to compare that, in all these 10 countries that I've shown you, these new European countries, there are 110 million of population and only 350,000 beds. In France, we have 57 million, so 2 times less, and 800,000 beds, and 2.5 beds more. So this drop would be, which is in percentage is quite low. It's not more than 5-10% compared to the increase of penetration rate. I think that it wouldn't be even noticed in terms of occupancy. Okay. Artyom, any questions? Type down.
There's a question from Nikolai, but I don't know.
So a lot of people, actually, I don't know how it happened, that maybe it was, if somebody joins through LinkedIn, it was through my, because what I've done, just to explain everybody, that on LinkedIn, to facilitate the process of registering, I registered myself and I published the link from myself. So that's how it works. Sorry, just sign your question in case you are using this LinkedIn link. Okay, Artyom, can you read it?
Yeah, it says, how has investors' activity changed during COVID-19 times?
Once more, what changed?
How has investors' activity changed during COVID-19 times? It's in the chat.
Oh, okay, it's in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. How change this activity? COVID-19. As I told you that the main outcome is that nothing has been changed. So investors right now still invest, still are searching for new projects, and they invest. For instance, the biggest network from Estonia that counts now 700 beds continues to develop, and Baltic, who has acquired, as we know, just before the pandemic's Gemra, they construct the second residence currently. In terms, during time of COVID in Lithuania, Adera Care has been opened and filled 200 beds in 4 months only. So I would say that no, at least in these countries, no any negative influence of COVID to investment activity at all, at least compared to France or to other, compared, for instance, to investment activities in hotels or in other types of real estate, no any negative influence.
Well, maybe I'd like to add something, I can't say for Baltics, but I can say for Europe, and in my experience, this is the wave of acquisitions, especially for in the good therapeutical areas, let's say, of the good facilities. This is the way of mergers and acquisition. So that's exactly the time.
Yeah, and that's exactly the time to buy RPI and Korean shares today. Definitely
just something to add, because you said that they reduced by 1/2. No, they reduced more, because really? It was 120, it was 120 to start with, but now it's about 40.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks for your interesting presentation at first. My question is, if what you are doing is you are looking at what the growth is in seniors, and what the possible demand is for extra senior care homes. And my question is, did you also took into account that, for instance, in my country, in the Netherlands, more and more people are also older people are staying at home with more technological support. And sorry, just at this moment, my telephone is gone. Okay, and that more people are able to stay longer at home with technical innovations and, for instance, more home care or other instruments, and that could possibly make the growth in the need for senior care homes a little bit less than maybe you took into your research, or did you already take it with your research?
Thank you for this question. Definitely, I mean that staying at home, that's something that EHPAD à la maison, age in place, that's very popular. And we personally, like Senior Group, we are in this business also. So we have home care department that uses call buttons, detectors of fall, special applications that even predict the hospitalization. It's a completely different area. And as we told while creating this research, we put some attention to, as we call it, complementers or substitutors of this service. As in the beginning, I've shown the home care agencies. And definitely how it will influence negatively the need, and that's fine. And we are sure that it's not essential to move to any institution if you are able to assure the staying in your own place. And we, all our clients, we always say that if you are able to adapt and to do it not in stigmatizing way, the permanent residence of your aged relative, it's better to do it. That's for sure.
but does it influence the prediction of how many new senior care homes you need?
Yeah, definitely it influences, because we take into account that the average age of moving into senior house has been moved approximately from 7 to 8 years.
Okay.
Before it was approximately 72, 73. Now it's approximate 78, and we take into account 81. That's average moving far for the next 10 years. So that's how we've taken it into account. But in general,
excuse me, just interesting. I just made the study of the home care groups of the leaders in the UK. And, while I've been doing the financial analysis, I've seen that the best EBIT is in the groups which have the mixed portfolio, who have the home care services, and in the same time, who have especially assisted living facilities. It's very interesting. I don't know, how to say, but it was quite repetitive. So I think that probably something in it. It's a question of portfolio. And like Nicola say, that can be linked to the different ages.
Yeah, thank you, Helena. We have unanswered questions from Rudy. I understand that there is a big gap to be satisfied in the Baltic regions. Do you have any recommendations for companies trying to satisfy the need of this market? I mean that to read the results of our research and to follow their own strategy and just to do the service on the sufficient level. That's what they do if they really want to solve this problem of families and of aged persons. So there is big gap, there is big opportunities. We should not just earn money, but we should take care of aged people and to solve the problems of families, to help them to take care of aged people. That's how we have to develop. That's what we advise to everybody. Okay, Piers, we have run out of time. If somebody has any question, just put it. If not, thank you for joining, and we keep going to improve this research, and we'll make this printed out version, and we'll share it with you. By the way, if somebody has not registered, can you drop down your email into chat, and Artem will copy it just to be sure that you'll receive the copy of presentation and of everything. If you registered through Zoom, it's not essential. We have your coordinates. Okay? But all those who use this Nikolai Koblikov as entrance gate, please drop down your email. It would be guaranteed that you'll receive. Okay, so thank you, and have a good day, and bye.
Bye.
Thank you. It was nice.